12:02 in Edmonton. How you doing on this Wednesday? Tom Gazzola, Reid Wilkins with you as we have another edition of the Oil Stream. Edmonton taking on the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. As always, the Oil Stream presented by Boston Pizza. We highly encourage you texting us 780-218-9999. Of course, get into the nasty chat if you're watching on YouTube. To all of you listening on iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Apple Music, and of course, up to sportstalk.com. We appreciate you. So get in on the conversation. Maybe you're enjoying a lunch at BP. Maybe it's at Popeye's, Louisiana Kitchen. Hopefully one of those two. I know it's probably a delicious lunch if you're choosing to eat there. And we're happy to be with you this afternoon. Reid, did you get a haircut? Because you look very nice today.
Thank you, Tom. I did get a haircut this morning. I appreciate you noticing. So it's the one day every 6 or 7 weeks I look nice.
You look nice all the time. You got the beard thing happening. Very good, very good. Very distinguished. Looks like you're ready to go for the game tonight. Are you going right from the studio to the rink?
Yes, that's what I've been doing for the home games, especially if it's just an hour in between the end of my show and the start of the hockey game. I will buzz straight to Rogers Place to make sure I get parking, and then head in and take a moment to enjoy pregame if I'm there in time to see the end of the warm-up and get ready to watch whoever it is. And good opponent tonight against the Golden Knights. They're having a great season, and obviously the Oilers lineup is stronger than it has been the last 3 games.
Oh, it is. Derek Ryan. I'm just kidding. Edmonton 6-6-1, Vegas 8-3-1. But the big news, like Riedrich was alluding to, Connor McDavid making his return after suffering an ankle injury last Monday. They initially thought it would be 2 to 3 weeks. I reported on Thursday that he was back on the ice. He wasn't waiting around as soon as he got back to Edmonton. And he took the morning skate, an optional morning skate, a couple of days ago. And today he is declared fit and ready to play. Are you surprised at all, Reid, that we're watching McDavid tonight against the Golden Knights?
I am mildly surprised, yes, because I think even though we kind of even knew initially that it wasn't a major injury, even the night it happened. And then as you reported, he went out for a tracksuit twirl, just 2 or 3 days after getting hurt. It was pretty good. So I never thought it was going to be the 3 weeks, but I thought it might be the 2. I mean, I thought it might go to next Tuesday against the Islanders or even next Thursday's game. But then when he skated Monday and the sound of it was pretty good, I started thinking, all right, probably Saturday in Vancouver. So I'm a little surprised he's right back in there today, just based on the timeline. But having said that, this is awesome news because, he doesn't – I know athletes always want to play, but you also want him totally comfortable and feeling totally healthy. So the thing for me is that he's back this quick is that this must have been not a major – well, we knew it wasn't major, but it was probably as minor as it could have been for an ankle, right, that he's only basically missing 3 games and just over – a week of action. So that makes me think this shouldn't be something that's going to pop up again in 6 weeks or 2 months where it's like, oh, that ankle looks weak or it's tiring or whatever. Probably a very, very minor thing. So that's very positive.
Yes, it is. One thing that came up, and especially when, it was revealed that he had skated on his own and was testing it out, people saying, I hope he doesn't come back too soon. And let him rest, let him stay away, get him back when he's ready. Is that concern still there? Are people that are fans of this team going, well, geez, I hope he's not rushing it just to play the Golden Knights, which is, has been the best team in the Pacific. I know the Kings have passed them, but the Golden Knights have 2 games in hand on the LA Kings. Do you think that concern is still there? Do you think those that might have been like, geez, I hope they don't bring him back too soon are thinking the same way today? Or do you think that mentality has shifted? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I understand that sentiment. But if he's 100% or as close to 100% that he can possibly be, then I think it's pretty hard to tell him not to play. I mean, they want to play every game, right? And I don't think he's rushing. I do think he might have rushed back last year to play in the Heritage Classic, to be fair.
Yeah.
I do
Fair.
think there was so much hype around that game, and he wanted to participate in it, that he might have rushed back a little bit last year. It doesn't feel that way to me this year. Again, because he was on the ice, because he was doing a morning skate and doing fairly normal things. This doesn't. I don't get the sense of this being he's playing before he's ready. And the old saying, once the season starts, nobody's 100%. Like after your first game, you're not 100%. So, is he? If the threshold for him, he feels 95%, or he has other aches and pains, well, there's a point where it's normal, right? There's a point where it's normal to feel a little off or a little tweak there or whatever, but this doesn't appear to be anything that's, again, serious or could pop up again later in the season, or a part of his body that's weakened and vulnerable. It just doesn't seem like that's the case this time around. So, no, I get that. Sure, I mean, an observer, a fan could say, well, I'd feel better if he was coming back on Saturday in Vancouver. I'd feel better if he had 3 more days off. I get why you would say that. But then the flip side to that is, what if he came out and said, yeah, I was actually good to go against Vegas, but we just were overly cautious, and they would have lost 5-1 to Vegas. Right. Then to me, I'd be saying, as a fan, or if I was a paying customer to that game, wait a minute, the star attraction was ready to go, and he sat out just to be overly safe. I think that's the flip side to that argument. I don't know. I don't feel that way about this one, Tom. Where are you at?
I kind of listened to him on Monday after he skated, and he, like, knowing him and his demeanor and how he kind of discusses things, and you get a feel for Connor McDavid, and you've been around him long enough that I think you understand what I'm talking about. He didn't want to reveal too much, it felt like, on Monday, and still play it by ear and a wait and see. And then I'm assuming he had a good rest of his day Monday. I'm assuming yesterday he felt good, got his treatment, and then today he went out there and was like, yeah, it's fine. He did say that last Monday, when he suffered the injury, he was concerned. He was worried that it would be worse than it turned out to be. So a sigh of relief there, absolutely. But there was this sense on Monday where I kind of felt, I'm like, I think he's back by the weekend. I didn't think that he'd be back this soon either. I didn't think he'd play this game because it was kind of wishy-washy, the answer that he gave on Monday. And I think Chris Knobloch too. They weren't it wasn't a confident answer in regard to, I think he'll be ready for the Vegas game. But, these guys and him and the treatment they get is incredible. Everybody's body responds differently to various forms of treatment. And clearly he bounced back well in whatever treatment he received, and his body did its own healing. He's good to go for tonight. So I think he's fine. And he said it the other day, I trust my body. I know my body. Ultimately, it's my body. And he makes the call. And he's been through way worse injuries that I think he has a pretty good understanding of what he can do in terms of pushing himself when he's injured. So I think he's going to be just fine.
Well, and I think you make a good point. These players, I mean, their body is a huge part of their professions, obviously. So
yeah,
they kind of know when it's at the point that, okay, I can play and be normal. And I think that, again, I don't know if they're ever pain-free once you become a pro athlete. Like you and I,
fair point.
You and I know a lot of former players, and of course, people in our audience probably might know an NHLer or a guy who played pro in Europe, and unfortunately, they usually retire with damage to their bodies.
Yes.
Like I used to always interview Kelly Rudy. Like, his ankles hurt almost every day. Like Rob Brown still gets injections for pain and stuff in his 50s. Like, he hasn't played pro hockey for over 20 years. So, I'm not saying McDavid is in pain all the time, but there is a certain it's a culture of dealing with pain and injuries, but they sort of know when, okay, this isn't pain or an issue that prevents me from doing something, or they know. So McDavid said, "Oh, I thought it might be this bad. Oh, but now I know my body is back at this point where I can perform normally." So I remember, I might have told you this story before. when I first started going into the Oilers dressing room after games. So we're talking 12 or 13 years. Yeah, it was a while ago. Eberle was on the team, and I noticed every game he had his wrist wrapped and iced. And I thought, I wonder what's wrong with him. And I kind of kept looking every day, and it's like, does he? He didn't have a wrist injury. He just had to do that after every game.
Right.
And you see that guys just have chronic parts of their body that have a chronic pain issue, or something from earlier in their careers that just to be precautionary, it probably starts to hurt throughout the course of the game. And by the end, just to be safe, they got to ice it or get treatment on it. It doesn't mean that they're, hurt or injured or can't play or even limited.
780-218-9999. Let us know your thoughts on McDavid's return. Are you excited? I'm assuming 99.9% of people are excited McDavid is making his return tonight. Are you surprised? Just how do you feel about it? Are you still concerned about his body? Reid and I, not so much. So let us know your thoughts. I'll get to a couple of texts and we'll go through the Oilers lineup for tonight's game against the Vegas Golden Knights. And we'll talk about those Vegas Golden Knights. Had a nice chat with Gary Lawless. You'll see that on the Oil Stream pregame show later today with myself, Hernan Salas, and Sean Bell. Let's go to Liquid Beaver. Liquid Beaver straight up just simply says, McDavid's a big boy. He will be fine.
Yes, that's the other thing to remember too. Yeah. They are adults, and they don't want to put themselves at risk either. Right? He knows what his job is here with the Oilers, so I don't think he would risk games. What are we looking at? I don't think he would risk games 15 to 82 just to play in game 14.
Right, exactly. That's a very good point. All right. I had a couple other ones I wanted to read. Hampton Steve says, good afternoon, Tommy and Reid. McDavid has a history of showing up big in his return from injury. What would you set the line at for points for McDavid tonight? I'd go 2.5, Reid.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. I sure. Let's be optimistic. 2.5.
2.5.
Which would be great because the Oilers need to score. So if he gets 2.5 and another line scores, that's pretty good. Yes, or if he gets 3, I guess, plus some other line gets a goal, that's 4 for the Oilers. That'd be pretty good.
That would be pretty good. What do you guys think? 780-218-9999. Okay, let's get into the lineup for tonight. Oilers and Golden Knights should be a really good game. Bruce Cassidy, it was interesting listening to him when we were doing his pregame availability. He's like, yeah, the first game between us and Edmonton last year kind of was flat. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. But usually we get a pretty spirited affair between these two teams. Okay. Lineup for the Oilers tonight. McDavid making his return between Jeff Skinner and Zach Hyman. Leon Draisaitl with Vasily Podkolzin and Victor Arvidsson. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins between Adam Henrique and Connor Brown. Derek Ryan at center between Matthias Janmark and Corey Perry. And if you didn't catch it earlier, Noah Philp has been sent back down to Bakersfield. Your defense for tonight, Matthias Ekholm with Evan Bouchard, Darnell Nurse with Troy Stetcher, Brett Kulak paired up with Ty Emerson, Stuart Skinner getting the nod in goal. A couple of things that I think are notable, and I'll go to a text first from this one from Al. Says, hey, Tommy and Reid, I love Skinner on the first line. I didn't realize how greasy he is and around the net. I love that with Hyman flanking McDavid. That's from Al. What do you make of this top line of McDavid with Jeff Skinner and Zach Hyman?
Well, I like Jeff Skinner getting that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I think with Jay yesterday on our show in the afternoon, I was kind of like, I don't even know about the line combinations anymore sometimes because it seems like everybody's kind of struggling to consistently produce offense. But I did say I would sooner, if they're going to move things around, I would sooner Jeff Skinner play in the top 6 with McDavid or Draisaitl as opposed to playing with maybe Adam Henrique as his center. So I thought maybe they would just default back to Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, and Hyman because that has been a pretty good line for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. But I think if somebody has sort of earned an opportunity to play up there, it is Jeff Skinner. I agree with, was it Al that wrote that in?
Al, yep.
I agree with Al. He's greasier around the net than I thought he would be. I know he was trying kind of criticized in the preseason. Well, why didn't we notice him so much? But that seems like ancient history now. And the thing about Skinner, Jeff Skinner, to me is, Tom, he gets to the net and he's greasy in a different way that I think a lot of forwards are. Because let's compare Hyman, or even Draisaitl if he gets in tight. It's plant your feet, plant that big buttocks, which is, I know a word you like, and hack away at the puck and power that puck over the goal line, turn into a bit of a fullback. When Skinner sort of, speaking of grease, it's almost like he is greased, that he's sort of sliding in between guys, or contorting his body a little bit to get through. I mean, that goal against Calgary, I know we talked about a couple. To me, that's the Oilers' goal of the year.
That was fantastic.
I know they've had a couple other nice passing plays, and Ekholm's made a couple nice dishes for goals, but I just thought the persistence to get in there and keep the puck alive, and then to have the skill and the wherewithal and the greasiness to reach in front as he's moving away and tuck that in. I thought that was a great goal. So yeah, I would agree. He's greasy in a different way. I think that he's kind of a shifty player too. The one thing I don't know if I brought this up to you or not, Tom. The interesting thing about him is sometimes he'll get the puck in that mid-range area, and I'll think he's going to shoot it, but he often makes that extra move. So I don't know if he doesn't like shooting through legs, or if that's just his mentality that he's quick enough. He thinks, I'm just going to, even if I move the puck a couple feet, I'm just going to change the angle for the goalie. Mm-hmm. It hasn't always, I think maybe that's frustrated me more about him than some other things. But then sometimes he makes that little drag move and still gets a good wrist shot away. But I think he's earned the opportunity to be on that top line on a team which, most people aren't scoring at the rate that you would need to. But yeah, I think that's I think I'm optimistic about him being up there with McDavid.
It could be a good combination, and especially with Zach Hyman starting to light the lamp a little bit. He had 2 goals in his past 2 games prior to the loss the other night to New Jersey, so maybe some life there. And obviously the wingers for the Oilers need to get going offensively. Skinner has a couple of goals this year. Now Hyman has a couple. Podkolzin, looking for his first, blew a absolutely phenomenal opportunity with a wide open cage, and then Victor Arvidsson just 1 goal, Henrique 1 goal, Brown 1 goal, Nugent Hopkins 1 goal. These guys need to start scoring. This team, one of the lowest scoring in the National Hockey League. Obviously, adding Connor McDavid to the lineup will boost that up. Share your thoughts with us, 780-218-9999. I'll read as many of those out as I can, as it is a game day edition of the Oil Stream. Tom Gazzola and Reid Wilkins with you here on Edmonton Sports Talk. The Oil Stream, as always, brought to you by Boston Pizza, where they have their $15 lunch menu. A fast lunch doesn't have to mean it's fast food. Grab a lunch at BP. They get it. Lunch breaks are short. That's why their new lunch menu delivers within 20 minutes, or your next lunch is on them. And you can kind of build some combos there. They have some great quick pick-me-ups that if you want something that's not as greasy and you don't need to cut with a fork and knife, they've got that. And then if there's something you want to enjoy a little bit, sit down and relax and spread out your meal and not have to, just shove it down your throat. They've also got that option as well. It's their $15 lunch menu at BP. And if it's not ready in 20 minutes, their next lunch for you is on them. I like it. Great deal. Hold them accountable. Fantastic. T-Man is asking, is Knobloch playing Skinner on their brutal power play is the question. I think they are going to revert back to their traditional, what we've seen, standard power play, Reid, when it comes to PP1. And McDavid had an interesting thing he said about it today. He called it flat, a little bit lifeless. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's been a big factor in that. The power play simply has not been good this year. It has been dull. It has not clicked anywhere near as well as it did in years past. It sits 27th going into action tonight. 5 goals on 34 attempts. That's good for 14.7%. Reid, a few of these goals of the 5 on the power play this year for the Oilers have come off the rush, not in a setup. off the rush. Good for them to get that done. But when they're setting up, they're not getting anything. Do you think that we will see a focus on scoring greasy, mucky goals where a guy like Hyman will plant himself with his buttocks in the crease? And do you think we'll be able to see the Oilers finally start to click more efficiently, simplify perhaps? What do you anticipate?
So they have 5 power play goals this season?
They have 5 power play
and
goals.
And Ekholm has 2, right? Aren't both of Ekholm's goals on the power play?
I would have to verify
yes,
that.
I believe they are. I didn't bring the full stat sheet that breaks down the goals by type. I just have the overall stats.
Okay.
So who has the power play goals? Leon has 1, right?
Let me look.
Sorry for putting
Bouchard has 1. Brown has 1. Draisaitl has 3. Oh, pardon me. That's points. That's not goals.
That's okay. No, because I think Ekholm has 2 of the power play goals.
Let me pull it up. I'll find it right here.
But I hope so, because I think that's what's been missing from the offense, both on the power play and 5-on-5, quite frankly, are those busy scrum plays in front of the net, like the ones Jeff Skinner scored on, like Perry getting that rebound goal against Nashville. They haven't scored a lot of those goals.
Ekholm 2 power play goals, like you said. Hyman 1, McDavid 1, Draisaitl 1.
Okay, the Hyman one was off the rush against Calgary.
Yes.
Ekholm was not on the first unit when he scored, I don't think. Well, maybe the one in Columbus was. That was right at the end of the game, though. The Draisaitl power play, I don't remember
off the rush.
Was it off the rush?
Or the McDavid one was off the rush.
Oh, where he just skated in and shot the wrist shot to the top corner. Wasn't that a power play
that's
goal?
right.
Okay, so anyway, well, and here's the thing. So they haven't scored a goal 5-on-5 or on the power play using Zach Hyman as an extension of the goalpost. Okay?
True.
How he just stands next to the post and camps out. They haven't done that. They haven't created, generally, a lot of action around the net on the power play. Correct. I still think, and I know people are probably already getting tired of this because I've been saying it since the start of the season, I still don't think Bouchard takes enough slap shots. I know when we did the show a couple of days ago, somebody said, did him hitting Hyman in the sensitive male area discourage him from shooting? Maybe. I don't know, but I didn't think he was shooting. I didn't think he was shooting a lot before then either.
And where did he hit him again?
A sensitive male area.
Okay, just to clarify.
The SMA.
The SMA.
So... And I would agree with McDavid that the power play has been lifeless, and I still think it's going to be very good because there's too much talent there and guys who have figured out in the past for it to be this bad the entire season. But there's been almost a little bit of a hitch in their play, I felt. So McDavid likes to get that puck on the left wing, right, and steam down. And what's he going to do? Across to Draisaitl, down low to Hyman, or a shot for a rebound with Hyman, or drop it back to Bouchard. And even as he's been doing that, I've sensed sort of now it's not there, right? And they don't get the good play. Same with Bouchard and some of his point play. I would say same with Draisaitl and some of his play when he has the puck. I hope at some point something just clicks and they start to feel like, oh, okay, there it is. Almost like, when you're golfing and you feel like I'm hitting 80% of a good shot. Like I'm not totally duffing it, but I know I'm not quite hitting it as cleanly as I should. I feel as if that's kind of where they're at with the power play.
What helps that on the golf course, Reid, really quickly? Swing lubricant. And you know what swing lubricant is? Alcohol.
Oh, okay.
It'll loosen you up.
That would probably make me worse because I'm so bad to begin with. But
stop it. Okay, sorry to derail you.
But I hope that they can just get busy around the net. And it's, I don't criticize them necessarily for overpassing because I know they're looking for something perfect. But I also would just like to see them throw the puck into the goalie's feet at some point.
Yeah. Yes.
I got a really interesting email late in our show yesterday afternoon. And it was a bit of a 4 or 5 year old article, but because I've been talking about the Bouchard slap shot and creating scrums and traffic and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was Bones emailed me, and the article was saying that point shots actually don't create a lot of rebounds. That you still have to be closer to the net in the slot to create more rebounds. But the chart they had also showed that those bad angle shots are more likely to create a rebound. So I would still say with Bouchard, shoot from the point, even if a point shot is a lower percentage. I think for the velocity he can shoot, that's a good play. But then I wonder, if Draisaitl or Hyman are down low off to the side of the net, can you look for the pass off the goalie's pads? Because as you know, Tom, often when a shot comes from a bad angle, like almost the puck coming in parallel to the icing line, to the goal line, the rebound almost always goes in front because of the way the goalie is angled, because he's not going to totally turn himself to face that shooter and try to, knife a shot into the corner. So if you get it in there quick enough, that puck almost always pops out in front of the net. Yeah. And on the power play, maybe it hits a defender, maybe, Hyman or Nugent-Hopkins finds it before anybody else, and then you get a goal. The one goal that was like that this season, I know it was a couple weeks ago now, was the Henrique goal, I believe, against Philly, when Janmark, it wasn't a power play, but Janmark came down the left side. They had a good zone entry. They got in with a little bit of speed, and instead of going behind the net, he just fires a hard, low shot at the, was it Urson that was the Philly goalie that night? And it pops out in front, and Henrique flips in the backhand because Urson couldn't control that rebound. And he's thinking, is he going to pass to somebody in the slot? Is he going to wrap it around? And then all of a sudden the puck's off the pads and it's in front of the net. And on the
great
power
backhand,
play,
by the way, too.
That was a great backhand by Henrique. Yeah, flashing back to that one. So if Draisaitl's down low, and if on the power play, and he hasn't got his one-timer off, but he's stopped the puck and he's at the bottom of that circle, and he's looking back to Bouchard or across to McDavid or across to Hyman, and clearly the teams are taking away those passes because they know how good the Oilers are at passing the puck. Is that the time? And to be fair, he's probably tried it a couple times, but is that just fired at the goalie's stick? Right along the ice so he can't catch it, he can't drop down and wrap it up in his belly. Just fire that puck into the crease and try to create a bounce off that, and then search for it and outnumber the shorthanded team. I still think that there's some muckiness that they can do around the net. Power play on 5-on-5. One
thing that Knobloch talked about, and I asked him today about, is there confidence and optimism that outweighs concern about the offense? Do you feel like the floodgates might open soon? And he, obviously being a coach and wanting to breed confidence and optimism, he stayed positive. He had a very good answer. But one thing that was notable that he said today was he talked with Glenn Gulletson and he talked about like playing street hockey style. And I think what you just described is a little bit of street hockey style. Remember street hockey? Nobody played with structure. Nobody tried to finesse street hockey balls into the net, tennis balls, whatever they use. It was a scramble, and sometimes you would have to just muck a nasty one. And it was all hell would break loose, everybody playing for themselves, and you would just try to score a greasy goal. And that's kind of what I think Glenn Gulletson and Chris Knobloch were talking about. And I think it speaks to the mentality and strategy you just brought up. And get pucks to the blue paint, see what happens. Go there. That's where goals are generally scored. It's nice to get pretty ones. Isn't always going to be there for you, though.
Well, first of all, the street hockey teams in Evansburg when I was growing up had elaborate playbooks, Tom, that we would have to study before we...
well, you guys were weird. Very strange street hockey players.
Well, and then the two Ekholm power play goals. Now, again, the one in Columbus was... Well,
garbage time.
I shouldn't... But having said that, who was the Columbus goalie? I already forgot.
It was
Merzlikins that game?
Merzlikins, yes.
He wanted a shutout, so I guess
of course.
He didn't want to give one up. But both of the Ekholm goals was he got the puck at the center point, had the checker coming out to him, took kind of one big step to his left, and wristed it on net.
Yeah. And
there was a screen, and it floated in. I mean, Ekholm can probably shoot the puck twice as hard as that if he takes a slap shot. So that maybe wasn't one of the ones I was necessarily talking about in the goalie's feet, but it was to the point, quick decision, enough of a screen or players crossing in front of the goalie as the puck is going, and it goes in. And again, and I think the other one was just off a faceoff. Didn't Arvidsson win it back to Ekholm? He stops it at the center point.
Yep.
Penalty killer comes up to him. He takes a quick little move to his left and wrists it in, just gives his teammates a second to get there. So, and I think that's what we're seeing with that Oilers power play. McDavid called it lysis. I said it kind of has a hitch into it. There almost is just that hesitation that you feel like they're thinking about what the best decision is, as opposed to just kind of going with the flow and trusting the things they've done in the past.
Yeah. Jeff texted in. He said, "Yo, Tommy and Reid, how come the Oilers flat out refuse to funnel pucks to the front of the net and the slot? When things start going sideways for them, they keep things to the perimeter." That last point by Jeff, because you and I have been talking about simplifying and getting pucks in net, but the mentality, Reid, maybe to like control and to set the pace is something that they feel confident in. I don't know. Like there is a reluctance to, like Jeff brought up, funnel pucks, get the simple play at the net. And I don't know if that's just what they revert back to when they feel like things aren't going the way, or they're uncomfortable as a unit or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good question by Jeff. And, I think that this discussion is sort of one that is borderline splitting hairs. And I don't mean this about Jeff's comment in particular. I just maybe when we as people who watch the Oilers talk about it, it does border on silly, but it's still relevant, because there could be times, and this is the silly part of it, what I'm going to say, but I'll explain it and hopefully people get what I mean. Are the Oilers sometimes victims of their own skill? Because they have
I know
players,
exactly what you mean.
They have players who know that they can pass the puck around in the offensive zone for 30 to 60 seconds, that they can play keep away, which they should have done late on that power play in Calgary, by the way. So the 4-on-4, who was the 4-on-4 against? Was that just on Monday against? That was just on Monday against
the 4-on-4.
Yeah. When they had the 4-on-4 and they passed it around, I think it was a minute 20 seconds.
Second period.
Yes, and they didn't get a shot.
Yes,
like they faked a couple shots. They almost shot a couple times. So that's the weird thing. They have players, several of them, who are skilled enough and smart enough to control the puck for an extended period of time. And because they know they can do that, they don't want to shoot until they see an open net. Right?
Fair.
So
valid. Yes.
So that's the fine line. When it works, it's glorious. It's because you've moved the opposition and the goaltender around and exhausted them to the point that the goalie has the opposition has no chance of preventing the goal. You move it around, you tire them out, you spin them around, and then all of a sudden it's backdoor McDavid to Draisaitl, and the goalie's like, "Oh man, seriously? Like I thought they were going to shoot 20 seconds ago, and now I'm totally out of position." So, but then the frustrating side of it is when we have a team that's underperforming offensively, it's like, my God, you can't score by passing the puck for a minute. It has to go to the scoring area at some point. But this is the confusing thing to talk about the team this year. When I asked Knobloch that postgame question, he said, "Oh, we're second in slot shots." So in his mind, they're getting chances. My colleague Jay Milne, they're probably a bit of a change because there were games last night. They're second in the league in shots on goal per game. Now, doesn't weigh in scoring chances, but just in terms of getting the puck at the goalie, they are still up there. So, that's what makes it really interesting and somewhat confusing to talk about. But I still think simplify it and put the pucks and the people to the net and scrum it up in front. I still think that's a big part of the solution.
Edmonton is second in the NHL on shots for per game, 33.4%. They are only behind Carolina at 35.8%. You want to talk about silly, Reid? Rick Rams fan texts in, says, the good old SMA in the PhD. Talking about the, what is the soft male area, sensitive male area.
Yes.
Waddy in Cloverdale texting in says, Bouchard not shooting enough. Perhaps the fans in attendance should suggest that in a shouting manner.
Yeah, I believe that's the next step. I did a top 3 on my show.
Yes.
I think before the season, so I don't know if you heard that one, Sean. Top 3, or I just called you Sean, of Tony, whatever your name is.
All right, Rick.
The annoying fan habits, and I said fans yelling shoot on the power play, and almost everybody, all the nasties, agreed with me. But I might be at the point where I have to recommend that.
I won't be surprised.
The solution.
Yes, I will not be surprised tonight if they are on a power play and we hear shoot. I get it. I think the fans had their patience with this power play, with how good it has been over the last 4 or 5 years. And then now they're like, oh my God, you guys are clicking at like 14%. Shoot. So I totally get it. The Liquid Beaver texting in said 100%, Reid. They're so good that they complicate the crap out of things. That's valid. Joel says, who cares? Shoot. And then Troll says, the back of Rudy's neck hurt too from sunburn. LOL. We'll play.
Oh, my, come on.
I think that's funny. That's funny.
He did have a good career, though.
Yeah, he did. He actually did. Eden also chiming in. Eden saying, hey, Tom and Reid, I would have concerns about McDavid coming back early. The start of last season was partially because McDavid and Ekholm rushed back early. That's understandable.
Yeah,
that is understandable.
Fair comment.
Okay, I have a couple of texts that I want to save for the end of the show. We still have about 15, 20 minutes left to go. Keep those texts coming in, 780-218-9999. It is the Oil Stream presented by Boston Pizza. I am inside the EST Satellite Studios downtown. Reid is at the Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen Studios as he looks around. He's all by himself in there. And Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen, one of our proud sponsors. Great to have them on board as always right here on the Oil Stream. They have their boneless wings, which is a continuation of their bone-in wings platform. You got all the great sauces and flavors that they have been leaning on. Signature hot, honey garlic, honey barbecue, garlic parm, as well as classic. Also, Popeyes bringing back the big box featuring 2-piece of signature chicken, 2 regular sides, and 1 biscuit with an option for the drink upcharge. Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen, always delicious, especially at lunch. Okay, let's take a look at these Vegas Golden Knights, Reid. They have been leading the Pacific Division. I know the Kings got a win yesterday and kind of leapfrogged Vegas, but the Kings have played 2 more games. They have an 8-3-3 record to Vegas's 8-3-1 record. Oddly enough, Vegas is winless on the road thus far. They've only played 4 road games. 0-3-1 is their record. They're 8-0 at the Fortress, a.k.a. T-Mobile Arena. How do you assess this Vegas Golden Knights team? Because there has been some upheaval in the offseason, and then at the trade deadline, they brought in Hurdle. They lose Marchessault, they lose Chandler Stevenson, they lose Alec Martinez, but they still have a damn good team on paper.
Well, you brought up the one thing that stands out. A lot of home games and they've won them all, and then 0-3-1 on the road. So there's that discrepancy there. Aiden Hill does not have a good save percentage. He's at .874, which is below both Pickard and Skinner, who've taken their share of criticism in oil country. But he's 5-2, so the team is still winning when he's in net. I thought Vegas was going to be good this year, and Tom, they're at the point with me where I just assume they're going to be good. I know they missed the playoffs a couple of years ago, but then they came back and won the Stanley Cup. And I'm kind of at the point with them where if they make a personnel move, even if it's a player who I've thought maybe isn't that great or is mediocre, I'm kind of at the point with Vegas where I think they must know something, or they must know how to use him, or get the most out of him. And I know this
make it work.
Yeah, I know this is a very non-analytical and non-statistical answer. It's more of just more my gut feeling answer, or just general observations answer. But they've pretty much always been good. I mean, even that year they missed the playoffs, I think they still were over.
They were leading the
500,
division for a bit, I think.
Yeah, and I think they might have still had 90 points that season, even or a little over.
Yeah, they're still a good team.
Yeah, so they've never really had a big drop off of a season. They've always
Fair.
been very competitive, and I said it. I said it after they beat the Oilers, and I'll say it again now. They have the miserable bastard factor. Like they have players that it seems to me that when they step onto the ice, they have a very low threshold for who they would injure to win the Stanley Cup. By that I mean you got to slash your grandma to get the cup. Okay, where's grandma? Bring her out. I'll slash her. Like they just have
fair.
that. They just have that very competitive, edgy game to them, and I think that's a. I think that's a conscious effort from McPhee and McCrimmon to build the team that way. That they also consider the human being as well as the talent level of the hockey player,
which is important and sometimes overlooked, as you and I have discussed.
I agree, and I think at times the Oilers have overlooked it. Quite frankly, I think that, and this is just my observations on how they play and how they kind of never go away and they're always good. And you watch them play. Yes, they have skill, but I mean we used the word greasy earlier. They have greasy / dirty players. Like Pietrangelo knew what he was doing 2 years ago, slashing Draisaitl. Like that's a blatantly dirty play, but he was willing to do it. And it helped his team, like it or not. It probably helped his team win the series. I mean, look how Mark Stone plays. I know Marchessault's gone, but as I saw him more and more over the years playing for Vegas, I'm like, yeah, he's skilled, but he's like, he gets mixed up. So he'll go into the scrums and do all that kind of stuff. And who was the guy on the fourth line I kind of didn't think was very good at first? Was it Kolasar? When I first saw him in the league, I was kind of like,
Kolasar,
he'll never
was on that fourth line.
Yeah. And then they're just a persistent, and they score, but they'll go out there and be like, hey, we're going to hack and whack and elbow and go as close to the line as possible. And then we'll score ourselves, or our skill guys are going to come out after we wear you down. So that's kind of what I admire about Vegas. That's part of the reason they've quickly become hated around the league. I mean, I know as an expansion team, some people started liking them right away, but I think now a lot of other fan bases are like, God, I can't stand this Vegas team. Not just because they win, but because of how they play. And you think of Eichel going there from Buffalo, and I remember when Eichel got traded there, interviewing John Shannon. He used to be on with me a lot, and he said, well, now Eichel gets to go pout his way around the Las Vegas Strip instead of Buffalo. Well, that hasn't been Eichel in Vegas at all. He's totally become one of those guys. So, I think the way they built that team, they probably think, okay, we got to have a majority of guys be ultra competitive and almost dirty, right? Or we're really willing to go to that line and put a foot over the line when it comes to the physicality and the rough play or even cheap play sometimes. And if we have a majority of the guys who can do that, like we got 13 or 14, then the 6 guys who might be indifferent, they can't be indifferent. They got to join the pack, right?
Yes,
so
they drag you in with them.
Yeah, I don't know if this is even what the original question was that you asked me, but
I can't remember.
That's how I look at Vegas as a team, and that's why I think they're always a tough out and always competitive and always good.
They're cutthroat, and that's kind of been their MO since day one, and that continues. What are they, into their 8th season, 7th season now? I had a conversation with Adin Hill today, and talking about his numbers. The wins-loss record, that's the most important part. That's good. The save percentage, below average, obviously. He was telling me, he's like, yeah, defensively we've got great D-men, but something's going on in the neutral zone where when teams are coming at us, I'm facing these really great opportunities that I wasn't seeing before the last couple of years. And I don't think he was making an excuse about his game or anything like that. I think he's just like, yeah, it's coming together, but it isn't quite there. And I'm like, if this isn't quite there yet defensively with that roster, and you guys are 8-3-1, I'm scared to see what you guys are like when you do lock it down defensively. Your game is better and your averages go up, and you're still firing on all cylinders offensively the way you are. Like that's what popped in my mind when he was telling me that. And, there's a calmness to their group, talking to Aiden. He wasn't too worried about it at all. Like just a very confident group, and they should be. They have like 5 guys that are a point a game or better right now through a dozen games. That's very impressive.
Yeah, Mark Stone already has 20 points. Like in
Stone 20,
games.
Eichel 16, Barbashev 12, Hurdle 12, Pietrangelo 12, and then by the way, Dorofeev has 10 through 12 games, and Shea Theodore, who's played 11 games, has 9. Like that's huge. That's huge. 5 goals, 3 goals, 7 goals, 4 goals. Pietrangelo's got 1, but he's a defenseman. Dorofeev has 7. Theodore has 1, but he's a defenseman. Keegan Colasar, who you mentioned, has 4.
Yeah.
Brett Howden has 6.
Yeah. Well, so Keegan Colasar has the same amount as Arvidsson, Nugent Hopkins, and Hyman combined.
Exactly. Thank you for finishing the point, because that's exactly what I was teeing up. No, that's good teamwork right there. But that is the point. Like, those guys are doing it. This team is offensively connected and in sync. Whereas we look at the Oilers, and although they're okay right now, and we anticipate things getting better for them offensively, it just isn't there. And their inability to make it go from the get-go of the season is very frustrating. And from a media perspective, we go, what the hell's wrong with you guys? You guys have some of the best offensive players in the world. Why isn't it happening October 13th or 12th, whenever the start of the season happens? And these Golden Knights guys seem to figure it out. It's just like, it's a head scratcher, you know?
On a side note, I find that really interesting what Aiden Hill said to you about the offense being generated against the Golden Knights through the neutral zone.
Yes.
And I still feel, Tom, and I wonder what some of our nasties will think, who've been watching hockey for a long time. I'm wondering if we're still seeing the maturation is not exactly the right word, but the sort of the development or the consequences of taking out the red line, now a long time ago, over a decade ago.
We're almost 20 years, right?
But players having never played with a 2-line pass, from Timbit, or whenever they start teaching the rules, like of coaches having not really coached with that.
Yeah.
Because I do think some things have changed. I mean, you look in recent years, if a team wins a face-off in their own zone, at least one guy, if not 2, just immediately skate out to center.
Yes.
As a contrast to the attitude in the 1980s, no one leaves the zone until the puck does.
Correct.
Well, now it's like get out of there and draw defenders out or try to get a quick 2-on-1 on a breakaway with like the equivalent
the opposition
of
out.
Break baseball or a basketball pass. And even when the Oilers against Dallas and certainly against Florida, one of the things they adapted to was just leave a forward out by the blue line or by the other team's blue line or by center and rim that puck around. I mean, Ekholm did that, the one goal Janmark set up Henrique in the Cup final. I think there might have been a goal against Dallas where the Oilers defenseman just got behind the net and wrapped it all the way around and knew that they had a forward waiting out there because the neutral zone play is different. So not so much pertain to the game tonight. I think that's just an overall hockey thing that I think we're still seeing that develop with the skill and speed of the players, that attacking through the neutral zone is much different than it was 15 or 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And he offered it up because, we were talking about a million different things. I hadn't talked to him in a while. And I'm like, how's your year going? Numbers are good. He goes, yeah, but we're not defending well through the neutral. I'm getting looks and these opportunities because our defense through the neutral zone just isn't the same. And I'm like, I actually said to him, because I've known him for a while, I was like, don't worry, these guys can't score.
Just putting him into some false comfort for tonight.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm a plant. I'm a mole. I've been planted in their locker room, but I've known him for a long time, so we can talk like that, if you will. So yeah, there was that. Okay, we have a few more minutes. Text us 780-218-9999. Get into the nasty chat. Oilers and Golden Knights. McDavid does return. Noah Philp has been sent back down to Bakersfield. He does not require waivers. So I know I saw some people in the nasty chat saying, did they waive him? No, they did not. Reid, he got his first look in the NHL, picked up his first point in his first game. Listen, the Oilers had a couple of good periods on Monday against New Jersey, but I don't think Philp was particularly strong. He didn't play a ton either. But overall, for his first stint in the NHL, I would say it ended up being positive.
Yeah, I think good for him to get the experience, good for him to get that first point. I know he still will hope to get his first goal at some point as well. No, but I thought he did fine for what he was asked to do. He had one really good face-off game, then one, I think he was only 1 for 9 or whatever the other time. But he got some experience that I think is valuable at this point in his career. And from a team perspective, they still won 2 out of the 3 with him in the lineup. It's not as if he came in and was a total detriment that other teams exploited. So I think good for him to get the experience, and I do think he's going to be back.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go to Ryan from Sask. He says, obviously there's a big desire to acquire a right-handed defenseman, but do you guys see the Oilers also getting a fourth-line center that will kill penalties? I think Derek Ryan is 1,000% more effective on the wing. I liked what I saw from Phil, but wondering if there's an appetite to add in that spot at some point. Reid, what would you say?
Yes, but I think these trades usually happen later in the season. I know that's not what people want to hear, and I would struggle to come up with a name right now for who might be available. So sorry, but yeah, I do think that's certainly right side D. I think if I had to pick one priority, that would still be it. And I do want to see Emberson keep playing, and hopefully he develops and gets better.
Build slowly, quietly, get his game going. He is 41 games into his National Hockey League career now, and I think we need to remind ourselves of that. Mike from Calgary, Texas says, Vegas winless on the road? Ladies and gentlemen, here are your slump-busting Edmonton Oilers. Oh, Mike from Calgary. Nature Boy says, hey, guys, love the show. I think it's time for all of us to admit it. Connor McDavid, superhuman, and the regular laws of medical care and physical healing do not apply to him. I mean, it is incredible to see that. Millwood's Matt said, my concern is that the team wasn't even scoring with McDavid in the lineup. And again, like I asked Knobloch about that today, and he stayed pretty positive about it, thinking that the dam's going to break. He alluded, and I alluded in my question to your question about the slot shots. And I said, hey, you mentioned, second in the league in slot shots. And he figures at some point it's going to get there. So no better time than now, especially with McDavid coming back. And you got the Vegas Golden Knights staring you down, a team that's 8-3-1 this season. Reid, Rick, any final thoughts before I ask you about what's coming up on the Reid Wilkins Show with Jay Mill?
Not too much. Just, I just want to see if the Oilers try to do anything different offensively tonight in terms of how they attack or how often or where they shoot from. And then kind of match, as I talked about Vegas, like always, I hate this cliche sometimes, but the good old difficult team to play against.
Yep.
Match that intensity and passion. Let Vegas know early you're not going to be the bullies tonight. We're going to stand up to you or bully you first. When it comes to the physicality and sort of that intense checking play.
I'd like to see that as well. Special shout out to Jeff Lang, celebrating career game number 1,500, all with the Oilers tonight. Langer does not like the spotlight. I asked McDavid and Skinner about him. We had some jokes because Langer doesn't like doing interviews. And if you see him on the bench, he's kind of grumpy and pouty, but really he's a sweetheart and a good guy. And so I wanted to congratulate Jeff Lang on his 1,500 games. I actually asked Connor if he ever sees Jeff Lang smile in the equipment room, because when he's out in the main locker room, there's no smiling. Have you had an encounter where Langer's been funny? I've had many, but they're not fit for air.
Yeah, I don't wind up interacting with the staff too much. It's usually just hello.
Yes.
with Langer or the other guys. So unfortunately, I do not have a smiling Langer story.
He's a good man, and I consider he's a friend. I worked with him when I was there for 8 years, every day. And so congratulations to Jeff Lang, celebrating career game number 1,500. As head equipment manager of the Edmonton Oilers, you might see some T-shirts on the broadcast tonight that the guys were wearing in celebration of the milestone. All right, Reid, Rick, what's coming up today on the Reid Wilkins Show with Jay Mill?
So we'll have some comments from Connor McDavid and Chris Knobloch about McDavid's return and the line combinations and facing the Vegas Golden Knights. The Canadian Open curling event is going on in Nisku, so St. Albert's Mark Kennedy, now playing third for Brad Jacobs. He's going to join us. And Cleveland Guardians pitcher, Edmonton's own Eric Sabrowski, will be in studio.
That's a huge show, Reid.
Thank you.
Well done. The best for the best. And that is here on EST from 3 to 6, the Reid Wilkins Show with Jay Milne. Great work as always, my friend. Be sure to protect your sensitive male area at all times, okay?
I brought a pillow.
That's going to do it for the Oil Stream, presented as always by Boston Pizza. Huge thank you to everybody who listened, and to those that watched. We appreciate you, and thank you as well. That's going to do it. I will be on the Oil Stream pregame show brought to you by GCL Diesel at 5:30, coming in hot right after the Reid Wilkins Show. Coming up next here on EST, it is EST Afternoons with Hernan Salas and Joaquin Gage. For Reid, I'm Tomothy, saying thank you, and we'll talk to you in a bit. Ciao, ciao.